The divorce papers arrived on my 30th birthday, delivered by courier to my front door with a pink sticky note attached. "Happy birthday, dear," it read in Monica's perfect cursive handwriting. My hands trembled as I held the envelope, still standing in the doorway of the mansion I'd called home for the past 5 years. "My name is Cassandra, and this was my mother-in-law's idea of a birthday present." I walked to the kitchen counter, my heels clicking against the marble floor, each step echoing in the empty house. Warren, my soon-to-be ex-husband, hadn't been home in 3 days. "Working late," he'd said, but we both knew better. My phone buzzed. Speaking of the devil, Monica's name flashed across the screen. "Did you receive my little surprise?" Her voice dripped with false sweetness. "You really outdid yourself this time," I replied, keeping my voice steady despite the rage building inside me. "Most people just send flowers." "Oh, darling, I thought it was time to stop pretending. You never did fit into this family, did you? Warren needs someone more suitable." I gripped the counter until my knuckles turned white. "Someone you can control, you mean? I'll expect you to vacate the house by the end of the week. Do try to leave it in better condition than you found it." The line went dead. I slammed the papers down and grabbed a bottle of wine from the rack, one of Monica's precious imports. As I poured myself a glass, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number this time. "Hello?" "Happy birthday, sis." Heard Mommy Dearest finally made her move. I nearly dropped my glass. "Gemma?" "The one and only black sheep of the Palmer family." She laughed, but there was an edge to it. "Listen, I know we've never been close, but I think it's time we had a chat. I have some information you might find interesting." I took a long sip of wine. "I'm listening." "Not over the phone. Meet me at the Blue Room in an hour. Trust me, you'll want to hear this in person." After hanging up, I headed upstairs to change. In the master bedroom, I opened my closet to find half of it already emptied. Warren's clothes gone without a word. Something caught my eye at the back of his side, a old leather briefcase I'd never seen before, partially hidden behind a shoe rack. Inside, I found stacks of documents, yellowed with age, bank statements, letters, and what looked like private investigator reports. As I skimmed through them, my heart started racing. Names I recognized jumped out at me, along with numbers that made my eyes widen. My phone buzzed again, Gemma reminding me of our meeting. I quickly photographed several pages, stuffed the briefcase back where I found it, and grabbed my purse. Before leaving, I stood in front of the giant mirror in the foyer, the one Monica had gifted us for our wedding. I wiped away the mascara smudges under my eyes and reapplied my lipstick. The woman staring back at me wasn't the same one who'd walked down the aisle 5 years ago, starry-eyed and naive. "Game on, Monica," I whispered to my reflection. The Blue Room was nearly empty when I arrived. Gemma sat in a corner booth, her wild red hair a stark contrast to the Palmer family's perfectly polished appearance. She stood when she saw me, revealing ripped jeans and a vintage t-shirt that would have given Monica an aneurysm. "Well, if it isn't my favorite sister-in-law," she said, pulling me into an unexpected hug. "Though I guess we won't be in-laws much longer." "I'm your only sister-in-law," I replied, sliding into the booth. "Not true. There's Felicity, but she's about as interesting as watching paint dry." Gemma signaled the waiter. "2 martinis, extra dirty." She turned back to me, her expression suddenly serious. "So, tell me about the papers Monica served you. How did you even know about those?" "I make it my business to know what that woman is up to." Gemma leaned forward. "But more importantly, what did you find in Warren's closet?" I stared at her. "How did you—" "Because I'm the one who left that briefcase there." She smiled, but it wasn't friendly. It was calculating. I've been waiting for the right moment and the right ally. Monica thinks she can just throw people away when they don't fit her perfect picture. It's time someone showed her what that feels like. The waiter arrived with our martinis. I took a long sip, studying Gemma's face. "What exactly are you proposing?" "Simple," she said, raising her glass. "We're going to tear down everything Monica holds dear, her reputation, her social standing, her perfect family facade, and we're going to use those documents to do it." I clinked my glass against hers, Monica's cruel smile flashing in my mind. "Tell me more." "You want to know why I was really cut off?" Gemma asked, spreading the documents across her apartment's coffee table. "It wasn't because I dropped out of law school like Monica told everyone. I sat cross-legged on her floor, surrounded by paper trails and old photographs. The contrast between Gemma's cozy, artistic loft and the Palmer mansion couldn't have been starker. Here, paint-splattered canvases lined the walls, and the air smelled of coffee and oil paints instead of Monica's suffocating designer perfume. I found these, Gemma continued, pulling out a stack of letters. Monica had been embezzling from Dad's company for years. When I confronted her, she gave me a choice: keep quiet and play along or get cut off. I chose option 3, told her to go to hell. But Killian, your dad, he must have known? Gemma laughed bitterly. Dad's been under her thumb since before I was born, but that's not even the best part. She handed me a manila envelope. Open it. Inside were surveillance photos dated 15 years ago. Monica, significantly younger but unmistakable, in intimate situations with a man who wasn't Killian. Holy shit, I whispered. That's Richard Martinez, Dad's former business partner. The affair lasted 3 years. When he threatened to tell Dad, she orchestrated his complete financial ruin. He died in a car accident 6 months later. My hands shook as I set down the photos. Are you suggesting? I'm not suggesting anything. I'm just saying Monica will stop at nothing to protect her perfect image. Gemma stood and walked to her kitchen. Want something stronger than coffee? Before I could answer, my phone lit up with Warren's name. Where are you? He demanded when I answered. Mother says you haven't started packing. Your mother can... Don't, he sighed. Just come home. We need to talk. Now you want to talk? After serving me divorce papers through your mother on my birthday? Silence on his end. That's what I thought. I hung up. Gemma returned with 2 glasses of whiskey. Warren being Warren? He's always been her puppet. I accepted the glass. How did you get all this evidence? I had help. She pulled out her phone and dialed. Actually, he should be here any minute. Right on cue, there was a knock at the door. Gemma opened it to reveal a tall man with glasses and a messenger bag. Cassandra, meet Terrence. He's an investigative journalist and an old friend. He's been helping me build this case for years. Terrence sat down, immediately pulling out his laptop. The affair photos are just the beginning. I've traced money transfers through shell companies, found witnesses to Monica's threats against Richard, and uncovered at least 3 other families she's destroyed to maintain her position. We need your help, Cass, Gemma said. You're on the inside. You have access to the house, to Warren's office, to their social circle. I took a long sip of whiskey. What exactly do you need me to do? There's a safe in Killian's study, Terrence explained. According to our sources, it contains documents that could prove everything. The embezzlement, Monica's involvement in Richard's death, all of it. The combination? That's where it gets interesting. Gemma smiled. It's your birthday. I stared at her. What? Monica's so arrogant. She used your birthday as the combination, to remind herself of the day she planned to destroy you. Ironic, isn't it? My phone buzzed again. A text from Felicity this time. Mother's worried about you. Don't do anything rash. I showed the message to Gemma, who rolled her eyes. Felicity, ever the faithful soldier. If we do this, I said slowly, there's no going back. We'd be declaring war. They declared war when they tried to throw you away like garbage, Gemma replied. We're just finally fighting back. Terrence began laying out a plan, explaining how we'd need to time the revelations for maximum impact. As he talked, I noticed a familiar look in his eyes when he glanced at Gemma. There was definitely history there. The annual Palmer Foundation Gala is in 3 weeks, I said. Everyone who's anyone will be there. Perfect, Terrence typed rapidly. We'll need to move fast. Can you get into that safe tomorrow? I thought about Monica's smug face, about Warren's weakness, about 5 years of subtle humiliation and calculated cruelty. I'll do better than that, I said. I'll get into it tonight. Warren's at his club and Monica and Killian are at some charity dinner. Gemma grinned. Now that's what I call initiative. As we gathered our things, I caught my reflection in Gemma's window. The woman looking back wasn't a victim anymore. She was a hunter. One question, I said as we headed out. Why did you wait until now to bring me in? Gemma paused at the door. Because now you have nothing left to lose, and that makes you dangerous. The mansion's security system beeped as I entered my code. 3 weeks left before I'd lose access completely, according to Monica's timeline. I moved silently through the darkened house, my phone flashlight guiding the way to Killian's study. You're in? Gemma's voice crackled through my earpiece. Just reach the study. I closed the door behind me. Where exactly is this safe? Behind the hunting portrait. Classic rich people hiding spot. I smirked, lifting the heavy oil painting of Killian in his hunting gear. The safe was exactly where she said it would be. My fingers trembled slightly as I input the numbers. 0315. The mechanism clicked. I'm in, I whispered, pulling the heavy door open. There's a lot here, Gemma. Start with anything related to Richard Martinez. I began pulling out folders, photographing everything with the special app Terrence had installed on my phone. Suddenly, lights flooded the room. I froze. What exactly are you doing in my father's study? Warren stood in the doorway, still in his business suit, his face unreadable. Warren, I breathed, my heart pounding. I thought you were at your club. Clearly. He stepped into the room, closing the door behind him. Are those my mother's banking records? They're evidence of your mother's crimes. I straightened up, refusing to act guilty. Did you know about Richard Martinez? His face paled slightly. How do you know that name? Your mother had him killed, Warren, after their affair, after he threatened to expose her. That's ridiculous. It was a car accident. I spread the surveillance photos across Killian's desk. Warren's hands shook as he picked them up. This can't be real, he muttered. It is, and there's more, so much more. I pointed to the stack of documents. Your mother has been embezzling money for years. She's destroyed families, Warren, and now she's trying to destroy me. He sank into his father's leather chair. Gemma's helping you, isn't she? Cassandra? Gemma's voice crackled in my ear. What's happening? Yes, I told Warren. She is. He ran his hands through his hair, a gesture so familiar it made my heart ache. I always knew something was wrong. The way Mother treated Gemma, the way she... He looked up at me. The way she treated you. Then help us expose her. She's my mother, Cass. And I'm your wife. Was your wife. I gathered the documents. You have a choice to make, Warren. Just like Gemma did. You can keep enabling your mother's corruption, or you can finally stand up to her. Heavy footsteps echoed in the hallway. We both froze. Warren, Killian's voice called out. Is that you in my study? Warren grabbed my arm and shoved me toward the hidden door behind the bookcase, the one that led to the service stairs. Go, he whispered. I'll handle this. I slipped through just as Killian entered the room. Son, what are you doing here so late? Just needed some contracts, Dad, for the Martinez property development. My heart pounded as I crept down the stairs, clutching the photographed evidence. I could hear Gemma breathing rapidly in my ear. Cass, are you okay? I'm fine, I whispered. But Warren knows. Shit, can he be trusted? I don't know. I reached my car and slid inside. But he let me go. Get to Terrence's place, now. We need to process what you found. 30 minutes later, I sat in Terrence's home office, watching him scroll through the photos on his computer screen. His eyes widened. This is bigger than we thought, he said. Monica wasn't just embezzling from the company. She was running a full-scale money laundering operation through the Palmer Foundation. The charity? I leaned closer. Look at these transfers. He pointed to a series of numbers. Millions moving through shell companies, then getting donated to the foundation, only to disappear into offshore accounts. Can you prove it's illegal? With these documents, absolutely. He sat back. This could send her to prison for decades. My phone buzzed. A text from Warren. We need to talk, alone. Tomorrow morning, our spot in the park. Warren wants to meet, I told them. Gemma grabbed my arm. It could be a trap. Mother could be setting you up. No, I said, remembering the look in his eyes when he saw those photos. He's struggling. This might be our chance to bring him to our side. Or he could warn Monica, Terrence pointed out. I have to try. I stood up. He deserves a chance to choose the right side. Like you chose? Gemma asked softly. I thought about the divorce papers, about Monica's smug smile, about years of subtle degradation. No, I replied. Like you did, when you walked away with your integrity intact. Gemma hugged me fiercely. Be careful tomorrow. Monica's not the only dangerous one in that family. I nodded, but my mind was already on tomorrow's meeting. Warren had always been our weak link, the one person who might still have a conscience under years of his mother's manipulation. Tomorrow would show us who he really was. The morning air was crisp as I approached our bench by the duck pond. Warren was already there, wearing his running clothes, just like he used to during our early morning meetups before Monica decided I was distracting him from his responsibilities. "You came alone?" he asked as I sat down. "Did you?" He nodded, tossing breadcrumbs to the ducks. "Mother's in crisis mode. Someone leaked information about the foundation to her. She's been making calls all morning. And you're here instead of helping her." I studied his profile. "Why?" "Because I keep seeing those photos in my head." He crushed the empty bread bag. "Richard was like an uncle to me. He used to take me fishing, taught me how to drive. Then one day he was just gone. Your mother—" "Don't." He stood abruptly. "I need to show you something. Come with me?" I hesitated. "Where?" "My office. There's something you need to see." 20 minutes later, we walked into the empty Palmer Court building. Warren's corner office still had my touches, the art pieces I'd picked out, the plants I'd chosen. He went straight to his desk and pulled out a thick folder. "I found these last night after you left. I stayed up reading them." He spread the contents across his desk. Bank statements, transfer records, everything Mother did. But there's more. He pointed to several documents. "Dad's signature is forged on these. I know because I've been forging it for years under Mother's instructions. She told me it was to simplify things, to help the company run smoothly." "Warren, I'm complicit, Cass, in all of it." His voice cracked. "Every document I signed, every meeting I sat through nodding like a good son. I helped her build this house of cards." The door opened suddenly. Felicity stood there, her perfect blonde hair and designer suit a stark contrast to our tense atmosphere. "What's she doing here?" Felicity's eyes narrowed at me. "Warren, Mother's been trying to reach you." "Not now, Felicity." "Yes, now." She stepped in, closing the door. "The foundation is under scrutiny. We need to present a united front." "United in covering up crimes?" I asked. "Crimes?" Felicity laughed, but it sounded hollow. "Is that what you're telling him? More lies to manipulate my brother?" "Show her," I told Warren. He hesitated, then handed Felicity the photos of Monica and Richard. She flipped through them, her face draining of color. "These are fake," she whispered. "They're not." Warren's voice was gentle. "You remember Richard fell. You remember how he disappeared." "No." She threw the photos down. "Mother wouldn't, she couldn't." "She did." I stood up. "And now she's trying to erase me, just like she erased him, just like she erased Gemma." "Gemma chose to leave," Felicity snapped. "Gemma chose the truth," Warren said quietly. "Maybe it's time we did too." Felicity's hands trembled as she gripped the back of a chair. "If this gets out, it will destroy everything. The company, our reputation, our lives." "Your mother's already destroying lives," I said. "How many more Richard Martinez's are out there?" Warren's phone buzzed, Monica's face lighting up the screen. He stared at it, then declined the call. "If we do this," he said slowly, "we have to do it right. We need proof that will stand up in court." "We have proof," I said, "but we need your testimony too, both of you." Felicity sank into a chair. "She's our mother." "And she's a criminal," Warren replied. "We have to decide what matters more, protecting her or protecting justice." His phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from Monica. "The vultures are circling. Where are you? We need to handle this now." "She's planning something," Felicity said, reading over his shoulder. "She always has a contingency plan." "Then we need to move faster," I replied. "The foundation gala is in 2 weeks. Everyone who matters in this city will be there." "You want to expose her publicly?" Felicity looked horrified. "It's the only way to make sure she can't bury it," Warren said. "You know how she operates, Fel. If we give her any warning, any chance to spin this, she'll destroy everyone involved," Felicity finished. She stood up, smoothing her skirt. "I need time to think." "We don't have time," I said. "Your mother's already moving to contain this. We have to decide now." Warren and Felicity shared a look, the kind only siblings can share, loaded with years of shared secrets and understanding. "I'm in," Warren said finally. Felicity closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and nodded. God help us all. As if on cue, all our phones buzzed simultaneously. Monica had called an emergency family dinner for tonight. Well, I said, gathering the documents, looks like the game is starting sooner than we planned. The Palmer Mansion's dining room felt like a powder keg waiting to explode. Monica sat at the head of the table, perfectly composed in her designer dress, while Killian occupied his usual spot at the other end, already 3 glasses deep into his scotch. "So nice of you all to join us," Monica said, her smile not reaching her eyes. "Even you, Cassandra, though I believe we discussed your living arrangements." "You discussed. I never agreed." I took a seat next to Warren, noting how his hand trembled slightly as he reached for his water glass. "Now then," Monica continued, "we have a situation that requires immediate attention. Someone has been spreading malicious rumors about our foundation." "Rumors?" Felicity's voice quavered slightly. "What kind of rumors?" "Nothing that can't be handled with the right approach." Monica's eyes fixed on me. "The question is, who would have access to such sensitive information?" The servant brought in the first course, Monica's favorite lobster bisque. No one touched their spoons. "Perhaps," I said, meeting her gaze, "someone finally decided to tell the truth about Richard Martinez." The silence that followed was deafening. Killian's glass stopped halfway to his mouth. "That name," Monica said softly, dangerously, "is not to be mentioned in this house." "Why?" Warren spoke up, his voice stronger than I expected. "Because of what you did to him?" "Warren." Monica's composure cracked slightly. "What has she been telling you?" "Nothing that isn't documented in your own records, Mother." Monica's laugh was sharp. "Oh, I see. You've all been conspiring behind my back. How disappointing." She dabbed her lips with her napkin. "Killian, dear, perhaps it's time we showed them the other documents." Killian cleared his throat. "Monica, I don't think—" "The ones about Warren's little indiscretion with his secretary last year? Or Felicity's abortion in college?" Monica's smile turned cruel. "We all have secrets, don't we?" "Are you threatening your own children?" I asked incredulously. "I'm protecting this family, as I always have." She stood walking around the table. "Everything I've done has been for this family's legacy, and I will not let any of you destroy it." "By any means necessary?" Warren's voice was quiet. "Like you destroyed Richard?" "He was going to ruin everything," Monica snapped. "Just like you're trying to do now. All of you, ungrateful children who don't understand what it takes to maintain our position." My phone buzzed in my lap. A text from Gemma. "Terrence just got the final proof. It's all ready for the gala. Are you safe?" "The gala," Monica said suddenly, making me jump. "That's your plan, isn't it? To humiliate me in front of everyone?" She laughed. "Do you really think I haven't prepared for every contingency?" "Even prison?" Felicity asked, surprising us all. Monica's face hardened. "No one's going to prison, dear, because none of you are going to breathe a word of this to anyone. Are we clear?" "Or what?" Warren stood up. "More accidents? More lives destroyed?" "Sit down," Killian ordered, finally finding his voice. "No, Dad, I won't sit down. Not anymore." Warren pulled out his phone. "I recorded everything you just said, Mother. About Richard, about threatening us. All of it." Monica's mask slipped completely. "You wouldn't dare." "Try me." Warren's hand was steady now. "The foundation gala is in 10 days. You have until then to confess everything to the board, or we'll do it for you." "This is how you repay me?" Monica's voice shook with rage. "After everything I've sacrificed for you?" "You sacrificed others for yourself," I said, standing up. "There's a difference." Monica moved with surprising speed, grabbing my arm. You turned my children against me." "No, Monica," Felicity said, rising. "You did that all by yourself." Warren gently but firmly removed his mother's hand from my arm. "We're leaving now, all of us. And if anything happens to any of us before the gala, that recording goes straight to the press." As we walked out, Monica's voice followed us. "You'll regret this, all of you." In the driveway, Felicity burst into tears. Warren held her while I texted Gemma. "It's done. But Monica's threatening everyone. We need protection." "Already handled," came the reply. Terrence has copies of everything in multiple secure locations. Any move against us triggers automatic release to every major news outlet. Warren looked over my shoulder at the message. Smart. Gemma learned from the best, I said, watching Monica's silhouette in the dining room window. She learned from your mother how to always be one step ahead. 10 days, Felicity whispered, wiping her eyes. What do we do for the next 10 days? We stay alive, Warren said grimly, and we pray Mother doesn't find another way to silence us all. As we drove away, I caught one last glimpse of the mansion in my rearview mirror. Monica still stood in the window, watching us leave, looking more like Lady Macbeth than the society queen she pretended to be. The endgame had begun. The Palmer Foundation gala sparkled with wealth and pretense. Crystal chandeliers reflected off designer gowns and diamond necklaces as the city's elite mingled in the grand ballroom. Monica stood at the center of it all, resplendent in red, playing her role as the perfect hostess. She looks confident, Gemma muttered beside me, adjusting her black dress. Too confident. Of course she does, I replied, accepting a champagne flute from a passing waiter. She thinks she's won. The past 10 days had been a masterclass in psychological warfare. Monica had frozen Warren's accounts, sent private investigators to follow Felicity, and even tried to have me arrested for trespassing at the mansion. But we'd been ready for everything. Terrence is in position, Gemma said, touching her earpiece discreetly. The press is already gathering outside. I watched Monica work the room, stopping to chat with the mayor, laughing with bank executives. Warren stood near the stage, reviewing his speech cards, while Felicity hovered near the bar, downing her second martini. Ladies and gentlemen, Monica's voice rang out over the microphone. Welcome to our annual Foundation Gala. Tonight we celebrate 30 years of giving back to our community. That's quite a speech, a familiar voice said behind me. I turned to find Killian, looking older than I'd ever seen him. Shame about the timing. You could still stop this, I said quietly. He took a long sip of scotch. You know, Richard was my best friend. The night of the accident, Monica told me she'd handled a problem. I never asked what she meant. He met my eyes. I've spent 15 years not asking questions. And now I'm too tired to keep pretending. He handed me an envelope. Bank records, the originals. Do what you need to do. Before I could respond, he walked away, disappearing into the crowd. And now, my son Warren will say a few words about our exciting new initiatives, Monica concluded, gesturing to the stage. Warren approached the podium, his face pale but determined. I slipped the envelope to Gemma, who immediately passed it to Terrence at his hidden position near the service entrance. Thank you, Mother, Warren began. You're right. Tonight is about truth and legacy. Monica's smile flickered slightly. The Palmer Foundation has indeed touched many lives, Warren continued, though not in the ways you might think. Richard Martinez's life, for example. The room grew quiet. Monica took a step toward the stage. Warren, dear, she called out, her voice honey-sweet, perhaps we should focus on our achievements. Like the $70 million laundered through fake charities, Warren's voice grew stronger, or the systematic destruction of anyone who threatened to expose the truth. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Phones started appearing, recording everything. Security, Monica snapped, but Gemma was already blocking the guard's path, along with several plainclothes FBI agents we'd coordinated with. The truth, Felicity's voice rang out as she joined Warren on stage, is that our mother built this foundation on blood money and blackmail. How dare you? Monica lunged for the stage, but I stepped in her path. It's over, Monica, I said quietly. You think you've won? She grabbed my arm, her perfectly manicured nails digging into my skin. I still have enough dirt to bury all of you. No, you don't. Gemma appeared beside us, holding up her phone. Check your private server. Everything's gone. Backed up to our secure locations, of course. Monica's face contorted with rage, just as camera flashes began exploding from the entrance. Terrence had timed the press perfectly. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, Warren's voice boomed over the speakers. We have evidence of decades of financial fraud, money laundering, and criminal conspiracy, including documentation related to the death of Richard Martinez. Monica screamed, a primal sound of fury and defeat. She lunged at me again, But this time, federal agents were faster. Monica Palmer, one announced, "You're under arrest for fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy to commit murder." As they led her away in handcuffs, she locked eyes with me. "I should have destroyed you the day Warren brought you home." "You tried," I replied. "You failed." The ballroom had erupted into chaos. Reporters shouted questions. Photographers' flashes lit up the room, and society ladies clutched their pearls in shock. Through it all, I watched Killian sitting alone at the bar, finally looking free of a weight he'd carried for decades. Gemma squeezed my hand. "We did it. Was it worth it?" I asked, watching Monica's red dress disappear through the doors. "Ask me tomorrow," she replied. "Tonight we drink." Warren and Felicity joined us, both looking shell-shocked but relieved. "Mother always said the foundation gala was about making headlines," Felicity said with a weak laugh. "Well," I raised my champagne glass, "here's to giving her exactly what she wanted." Outside, the press crews were setting up for live broadcasts, ready to tell the world how the mighty Palmer Empire had fallen. But in that moment, surrounded by my unlikely allies, I felt nothing but peace. The truth, as they say, had finally set us free. The morning after the gala, I sat in Terrence's office watching the media frenzy unfold across multiple screens. Every news channel showed Monica's arrest on loop, interspersed with photos of Richard Martinez and infographics detailing the foundation's fraud. "They're calling it the scandal of the decade," Terrence said, tossing another newspaper onto his desk. "The FBI's investigation is expanding by the hour." Warren walked in, looking exhausted in his rumpled suit. "They're questioning Dad now. He's telling them everything." "How are you holding up?" I asked. "Better than Felicity. She's at home with her anxiety medication. The press won't leave her doorstep." He collapsed into a chair. "Mother's lawyers are already working on bail." "She won't get it," Gemma said, entering with coffee cups for everyone. "The evidence is too strong and she's a flight risk." My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. My heart stopped when I opened it. "You took everything from me. Now watch your own life burn." "Monica has friends in high places," Warren said, reading over my shoulder. "Powerful friends." As if on cue, Terrence's TV screens erupted with breaking news. My photo appeared alongside headlines. "Palmer whistleblower's dark past revealed." "Oh God," I whispered. The reporter's voice filled the room. "Sources close to the Palmer family have revealed that Cassandra Fox, the daughter-in-law who helped expose the foundation scandal, has her own history of financial misconduct. Documents show multiple instances of—" "It's all lies," Warren interrupted, grabbing the remote. "Mother's trying to discredit you." "It's working," Terrence said grimly, scrolling through social media. "The story's going viral." My phone kept buzzing with messages from unknown numbers. Threats, insults, accusations. I turned it off. "We knew she'd retaliate," Gemma reminded us. "That's why we have this." She pulled out a USB drive. Every email, every message where Monica orchestrated smear campaigns against her enemies, including this one. Terrence plugged it in, his fingers flying over the keyboard. "Give me an hour. I'll trace these sources right back to Monica's allies." The door burst open. Felicity rushed in, mascara streaked down her face. "They're seizing everything. The houses, the cars, the company accounts, all frozen pending investigation." "Good," Warren said firmly. "Let them take it all. We don't need any of it." "Easy for you to say." Felicity collapsed onto the couch. "You have your own money. I've never worked a day in my life. What am I supposed to do?" "Start over," I said quietly, "like I'm going to have to do." My phone started ringing again. This time it was my boss. Former boss, probably, given the headlines. "The truth will come out," Terrence assured me, still typing frantically. "We just need to weather the storm." "There's more," Warren said, checking his phone. "Mother's lawyers are claiming we conspired to frame her. They're trying to drag us all down with her." "Let them try." Gemma stood up, pacing. "We have recordings, documents, witnesses. The FBI has everything. But the court of public opinion moves faster than the justice system," Terrence pointed out. "We need to get ahead of this." "How?" Felicity asked. "By telling our story first." He turned his laptop around, showing a draft article. "All of it. The abuse, the manipulation, the fear. Humanize ourselves before Monica can demonize us." "I'll do it," Warren said immediately. I'll give them the full story of growing up under her control. Me too, Felicity whispered. It's time people knew the truth about our perfect family. My phone buzzed one final time before dying. Another message from Monica. This is just the beginning. She's right, I said, staring at the black screen. This isn't over. No, Gemma agreed, but this time we're not fighting alone. Terrence's computer pinged. Got it. The smear campaign traces back to Jeffrey Williams, Mother's old friend from the country club. He's been coordinating with her lawyers. Then we go after him next, Warren said decisively. Every ally she has, every person helping her attack us, we expose them all. It's war, Felicity said softly. It's always been war, I replied. We just didn't know we were soldiers until now. Outside, reporters had found Terrence's office. Camera flashes strobed through the windows as they shouted questions. Ready to face them? Gemma asked, holding out her hand. I took it, feeling stronger with my unlikely family around me. Together? Warren grabbed his suit jacket. Together. As we prepared to face the media circus outside, I caught my reflection in the window. The woman looking back wasn't Monica's victim anymore. She was a survivor, a fighter, and she was ready for whatever came next. Let's show them what real strength looks like, I said, reaching for the door. The courthouse steps were packed with reporters as Monica was led out in handcuffs. Her designer suit had been replaced by prison orange, her perfectly styled hair now limp and graying. She held her head high, but her eyes told a different story. Guilty on all counts, Warren said beside me, his voice tight with emotion. 25 years. The mighty fall hard, Gemma murmured, squeezing my hand. Monica's eyes locked with mine as she passed. For a moment, I saw something I'd never seen before in them. Defeat. Then she was gone, swallowed by the waiting police vehicle. Ms. Fox, reporters shouted, how does it feel to be vindicated after the smear campaign? The truth speaks for itself, I replied, using the line Terrence had prepared. The evidence was clear. Back at Gemma's loft, we opened the champagne we'd been saving. Felicity arrived last, carrying a familiar leather briefcase. Found this in Mother's secret vault, she said, setting it down. There's something you should see, Cass. Inside was a file with my name on it. Documents dating back to before I met Warren. Background checks, surveillance photos, notes in Monica's precise handwriting. She was vetting you from the start, Felicity explained, looking for weaknesses she could exploit. But you know what she found? Nothing. It drove her crazy that she couldn't control you. Speaking of control, Warren pulled out an envelope. The divorce papers. I never filed them. I stared at the envelope. What are you saying? I'm saying I'd like to try again. Without Mother's influence, without the lies. He took my hand. The real us, this time. Warren, I started, but Gemma interrupted. Before you answer that, she said, there's something else you should know. She nodded to Terrence, who pulled out his laptop. The Foundation's legitimate charitable works, he said. They weren't all fake. Some of the programs actually helped people. I think we could rebuild it, the right way this time. We? Felicity asked. All of us, he replied. Clean slate, new board, total transparency. Use the Palmer name to do actual good for once. That would be the ultimate revenge, Gemma said with a smile. Taking everything Monica built for evil and turning it to good. My phone buzzed. A message from Killian. The house is yours if you want it. All of you. I'm moving to the lake house. Time for the next generation to build something better. So, what do you say? Warren asked softly. Partners? All of us? I looked around the room at these people who had become my real family. Gemma, fierce and loyal. Felicity, finding her strength. Terrence, with his unwavering integrity. And Warren, finally free to be himself. Partners, I agreed. But the divorce papers? Sign them. His face fell. Sign them, I continued. Because if we do this again, we do it right. New beginning, clean slate. We date, we take our time, we build trust. No shortcuts this time. He smiled, understanding dawning in his eyes. Deal. To new beginnings, Felicity raised her glass. And old endings, Gemma added, nodding toward the TV where Monica's conviction was still making headlines. You know she'll never stop, Terrence warned. Even from prison, she has connections. Let her try, I said. We're stronger together than she ever was alone. The sun was setting over the city, painting the sky in shades of possibility. My phone buzzed again, another message from an unknown number. But this time I didn't feel fear. I felt ready. "First board meeting tomorrow?" Gemma asked, already pulling out her tablet to take notes. "First date tomorrow," Warren corrected, looking at me hopefully. "Both," I decided. "Business in the morning, pleasure in the evening. We're building something new here. Might as well start right away." "To the new Palmer Foundation." Felicity raised her glass again, built on truth instead of lies. "To family," Gemma added. "The ones we choose." "To justice," Terrence said. "To second chances." Warren looked at me. I raised my glass, thinking of Monica in her prison cell, of Richard finally getting justice, of all the possibilities ahead of us. "To karma," I said. "May it always find its way home." Outside, the city lights began to twinkle, each one a reminder that darkness never lasts forever. We had survived Monica's reign, emerged stronger, and now stood ready to write our own story. Not an ending, but a beginning. And this time, we'd write it together.
On a Sunday morning, Nancy Thompson emerged gracefully from her stately white colonial home in Tampa's upscale Davis Islands neighborhood. Her emerald green maternity dress sparkled in the Florida sunlight. Despite being 8 months pregnant, she moved with remarkable lightness as she headed to First Presbyterian Church of Tampa with her husband Robert. "Good morning, Nancy." "Not long now. How are the baby preparations coming along?" Friends greeted her warmly in front of the church. This was her first pregnancy in 7 years of marriage, a precious life finally conceived after years of fertility treatments. "Yes, it still feels like a dream that our family will be growing soon," Nancy smiled, gently placing her hand on her belly. Beside her, Robert beamed with pride. As a senior manager at a real estate development company, he had contributed to Tampa's economic growth and was a trusted figure in the church community. During Sunday service, the pastor offered a special prayer. As the congregation responded with warm amens to the words, "Lord, please protect this new life," Nancy's heart overflowed with gratitude. Though she maintained her cool judgment as an insurance risk analyst by profession, at this moment she couldn't hold back her emotions. After the service, the couple enjoyed lunch at Burns Steakhouse. A list of birth preparations lay spread out on the table. Over the chef's special beef tenderloin, Robert unusually kept work talk to a minimum, focusing instead on the upcoming birth. "The birth plan is perfect. Dr. Sullivan has given us her full approval that everything's progressing well. I trust you completely. You're going to be a wonderful mother." Robert spoke softly, reaching across the table to hold Nancy's hand. His gesture brought tears to her eyes. In the afternoon, they enjoyed some final shopping at International Plaza. At the baby store, Robert carefully examined each stuffed animal, seriously considering which would be the best. "How about this white rabbit? It could be the baby's first friend." That evening, Nancy sat alone in the bedroom looking through an album. Photos from hospital visits during fertility treatments, flowers Robert had given her after each egg retrieval, and the positive pregnancy test she'd waited so long for, all had become precious memories. In particular, the photo from the day they confirmed their first pregnancy showed them both crying with joy. The following weekend, Nancy's mother Elizabeth came to check on them. The aroma of homemade apple pie filled the house. Nancy, your nursery is absolutely lovely. The clean, white-based space was accented with gentle pastel colors. A mobile swayed gently in the breeze from the ceiling, while hand-painted animals smiled sweetly from the walls. Robert took time off to help prepare everything. He even painted the murals himself. That boy will surely be a wonderful father. I can feel your love for each other filling this room. Elizabeth's words gave Nancy a profound sense of happiness. With 3 weeks until her delivery at Tampa General Hospital, preparations for welcoming their new life were steadily progressing. At dusk, Nancy stepped into her backyard. The sea breeze from St. Pete Beach gently caressed her cheeks. The bougainvillea in the garden was in full bloom, its vibrant pink colors enhanced by the setting sun. That night, lying in bed, Nancy said a silent prayer. Dear Lord, please let this child grow up healthy. And please let these happy days continue. Outside the window, Florida's night breeze seemed to softly bless the new life about to begin. Feeling the small life's movements within her, Nancy drifted into peaceful sleep. One April morning, Nancy woke to sudden intense contractions. The clock showed 3:15 a.m. Through the bedroom window, Tampa's skyline was still dark. She woke Robert, who had been dozing by the bedside, and grabbed her pre-packed hospital bag. Are you all right? Should we head to the hospital? Yes, I think so. While tracking her contractions, Nancy calmly assessed the situation. Perhaps due to her profession as a risk analyst, she could make clear judgments even in emergencies. The streets of Davis Islands were silent in the dead of night. Robert's black Mercedes glided past the bougainvillea hedges, heading toward Tampa General Hospital. On the way, Nancy called her mother Elizabeth. Mom, the contractions have started. I'll be right there. Don't worry. At the hospital, Dr. Sullivan was already waiting. She had supported Nancy through 7 years of fertility treatments. You've done well, Nancy. It looks like it's time to meet your baby. The delivery room was a spacious private suite specially prepared for the birth. Through the large windows, Tampa Bay was visible in the pre-dawn light. A crucifix hung on the wall, beneath which fresh white lilies were arranged. Contractions are 4 minutes apart. Cervical dilation is progressing normally. Jane, the midwife, explained the situation in professional terms, her voice carrying the confidence of years of experience. At 6 a.m., Elizabeth arrived, carrying a bundle of prayer cards from their church friends. Everyone at First Presbyterian is praying for you. Nancy's eyes welled up at her mother's words. Though the contractions grew stronger, the support around her helped ease the pain. Keep your breathing steady. Yes, you're doing very well. Time passed as Nancy followed Dr. Sullivan's instructions. Outside the window, the sunrise began painting Tampa Bay in golden hues. Nancy, you'll be fine. We're here with you. Elizabeth held her daughter's hand, offering words of encouragement. Robert silently rubbed his wife's back, his hands betraying slight tension. After 9 a.m., the contractions became more frequent. Nancy, it's time to move to the delivery room. Dr. Sullivan's voice brought focus to the room. The delivery room was a sterile space equipped with the latest medical technology. Soft lighting designed for relaxation illuminated the ceiling, while monitors on the wall tracked the baby's heartbeat. "You'll meet your baby soon. Keep going." Elizabeth had to wait outside the delivery room. Inside, Dr. Sullivan led a team of 4 medical staff who began moving efficiently. "Take deep breaths. I can see the baby's head." Despite the intense pain with each contraction, Nancy remained fully conscious. After 7 years of waiting, even this pain felt precious. "One more push. You can do it." Dr. Sullivan's voice rang out. In that moment, the baby's first cry filled the delivery room. "Congratulations. It's a healthy baby boy." Dr. Sullivan gently cleaned the baby and placed him on Nancy's chest. The warmth of this tiny life enveloped her whole body in happiness. Nancy gazed at her child through tears. The baby, as if already recognizing his mother's voice, had stopped crying and showed a peaceful expression. That's when it happened. "We need a DNA test." A cold voice suddenly cut through the air. Robert was staring at the baby with an icy gaze. "I need to confirm if this is definitely my child." The atmosphere in the delivery room froze. Nancy held her baby tightly while looking up at her husband. Her eyes reflected disbelief at this incomprehensible reality, shining with overflowing tears. "What do you mean?" Nancy's voice trembled as she asked, but Robert's expression remained cold. Elizabeth, who had been waiting outside the delivery room, noticed something was wrong and came in. When she grasped the situation, her expression changed completely. "Have you lost your mind? Are you trying to insult my daughter and grandchild?" Elizabeth's angry voice echoed through the room. Dr. Sullivan, sensing the situation, immediately gave instructions to her staff. "Mr. Thompson, we can discuss this matter later. Right now, the mother and baby's rest is our priority." Robert didn't respond. However, his expression showed no regret. Rather, his eyes held a calculating look, as if confirming a plan he was about to execute. Nancy silently continued gazing at her baby, who slept peacefully against her chest, as if completely removed from the ugly events unfolding in this world. Elizabeth sat beside Nancy, holding her daughter's shoulders firmly. "It's okay. I'm here with you." 3 days after the birth, Dr. Sullivan sat in her office, staring at the DNA test results. In her 30-plus years as an obstetrician, she had never encountered such a perplexing situation. "This is strange." She frowned, rechecking the test data displayed on her monitor. The data showed clear abnormalities. The threshold values between positive and negative results were completely different from the normal range. Just then, there was a knock at the door. Nancy Thompson opened the door. Though showing signs of postpartum fatigue, her demeanor as she held her baby radiated unmistakable maternal love. "Dr. Sullivan, the results." Her voice trembled slightly. Behind Nancy stood her mother Elizabeth. Dr. Sullivan guided them to a sofa in the corner of her office, furthest from the windows. The walls were adorned with numerous awards telling the story of her career, next to which hung photos of babies whose births she had attended, evidence of her involvement in over 3,000 new lives over 30 years. There are unnatural aspects to these results. Dr. Sullivan carefully chose her words as she began her explanation. Doctor, I absolutely. Nancy, I've been your doctor for 7 years. I know your integrity better than anyone. The doctor's voice carried unwavering trust. Elizabeth silently squeezed her daughter's hand. Actually, something has been bothering me since last night. Dr. Sullivan stood up and began walking around her office. Through the window, a cruise ship could be seen docked in Tampa Bay. Beyond it, the Florida sun shone brightly. The lab technician reported some suspicious findings. Unusual access logs were found in the laboratory system. She returned to her desk and showed them the computer screen. Look here. This is the pattern of normal test data. The screen displayed comparison graphs with past test results. And this is the current result. There's clearly an unnatural bias. The graph's abnormality was obvious even without medical expertise. But why? In response to Nancy's question, Dr. Sullivan let out a deep sigh. I asked the system administrator to investigate thoroughly. She typed on her keyboard, opening a new screen. Last night, there was external access to the laboratory system. And immediately after that, parts of the data were altered. A heavy silence fell over the office. The baby was sleeping peacefully in his mother's arms. There's more that concerns me. Dr. Sullivan pulled a document from her desk drawer. This is from the hospital's security cameras. Last night, a suspicious person was seen near the laboratory. Though the security camera image was unclear, it showed a tall man in a suit, a familiar silhouette. Elizabeth gasped. It looks very similar to Robert. Dr. Sullivan's voice maintained its composure but carried a hint of anger. But that's not all. She scrolled the screen further. Mike Johnson, our lab technician, made an interesting statement this morning. A few days ago, someone approached him offering $500,000 in cash to falsify the test data. The color drained from Nancy's face. Mike refused the offer and immediately reported it to his supervisor. However, he started receiving anonymous threatening emails afterward. Dr. Sullivan walked to the window. Looking down at Tampa's cityscape, she strengthened her resolve. This is clearly criminal. Falsifying medical records is a serious offense. We cannot overlook this. She turned to face them. We should call the police. Clear fraud has been committed. At that moment, Nancy's phone rang. A message from Robert appeared on the screen. Let me know as soon as the DNA test results are out. Elizabeth, holding her daughter's shoulders, nodded to Dr. Sullivan. Please. Call the police. Dr. Sullivan picked up the hospital's internal phone. Her hand holding the receiver was supported by the firm resolve built over 30 years of her career. Outside the window, Tampa was bustling with life. The Riverwalk crowded with tourists, modern office buildings, and the calm bay beyond. In this peaceful scene, events that would change one family's life were quietly but surely unfolding. Dr. Sullivan put down the phone and turned to Nancy. "Your baby is undoubtedly yours and Robert's child. To prove this, we must reveal the truth." Her voice carried both professional pride and personal sense of justice. "The truth will always come to light." Those words echoed quietly in the morning office. As they waited for the Tampa police to arrive, the three women held in their hearts the resolve for the battle that was about to begin. In the interrogation room at Tampa Police Headquarters, Detective Laura Martinez sat across a stainless steel table from Robert. A large mirror was mounted on the wall, behind which Dr. Sullivan watched from the observation room. "Let me confirm again. Where were you between 11:15 p.m. and 11:45 p.m. last night?" Laura's voice maintained the composure developed over 15 years of experience. "I was at home," Robert answered while casually adjusting the collar of his expensive suit. His gesture exuded the confidence of a senior manager. Laura pulled out a photograph. It showed a figure captured by the hospital's security camera. This angle clearly showed Robert's characteristics. "Isn't this you?" Robert's expression tensed for a moment. But he quickly composed himself. "It just looks similar." "That's not me." "Then how do you explain this?" She now showed the witness statement from lab technician Mike Johnson. "Offered $500,000 in cash to falsify DNA test results." The statement detailed specific dates, locations, and conversation content. "Mr. Johnson clearly identifies you." Robert's lips trembled slightly. "His testimony is credible." Laura continued, presenting email records. "Multiple threatening emails were sent to Mr. Johnson from your company's IP address." The atmosphere in the interrogation room grew heavy. Furthermore, the unauthorized access to the hospital's security system could only have happened with the cooperation of your IT specialist subordinate. The composure disappeared from Robert's expression. "I exercise my right to remain silent. I want my lawyer. Before that, one more thing." Laura produced her final piece of evidence. Bank transaction records. "Last week, you transferred $5 million to an overseas account. Were you hiding assets in preparation for divorce?" At that moment, Robert's attitude changed completely. "Why did you try to falsify the DNA test results?" Under Laura's questioning, Robert finally opened up. "To frame Nancy for adultery." His voice showed no trace of regret now. "If the DNA test showed it wasn't my child, it would prove Nancy had been with another man. I wouldn't have to pay alimony in the divorce. I could start a new life with Jennifer." "Jennifer?" "Yes, my secretary. Young and beautiful. Nothing like Nancy." Robert's tone was surprisingly cold. "So you tried to frame your innocent wife for adultery by falsifying the results?" "That's right. I couldn't let Nancy take my assets if I was going to live with my mistress Jennifer." In the observation room, Dr. Sullivan could barely contain her anger as she listened to this exchange. Next to her sat the Tampa General Hospital's legal counsel. "This is criminal. Attempted medical record falsification, threats, attempted fraud. We can certainly pursue substantial civil damages as well." The lawyer nodded while taking notes. In the interrogation room, Robert's confession continued. "I don't care about Nancy anymore. 7 years of fertility treatments. I just went along with it. Jennifer could give me a child right away." Laura's eyes flashed sharply at those words. "Mr. Thompson, are you saying your love for your wife and your newborn child were all lies?" Robert sneered as he replied. "Business requires no emotion. Marriage is just business." At that moment, footsteps were heard in the hallway. The door opened, and a young woman appeared. "Jennifer!" Robert exclaimed in surprise. Jennifer looked straight at Robert. "I told the police everything. How you instructed me to contact Mike Johnson. How you planned the data falsification. Everything." "What?" "Let's end this, Robert. I cannot be part of framing an innocent person." Jennifer's voice carried firm resolve. "The DNA test results have already been verified," Laura quietly announced. "The baby is undoubtedly your biological child. You tried to deny even your own flesh and blood." The color drained from Robert's face. "Robert Thompson, you are under arrest." Laura stood up and began the arrest procedure. In the observation room, Dr. Sullivan let out a deep sigh. Now Nancy and the baby's honor has been protected. In the hallway, media was already gathering. The arrest of a senior manager from Tampa's prominent real estate development company would undoubtedly become major news. However, Dr. Sullivan's concern lay elsewhere. "I pray that Nancy and the baby's emotional wounds will heal, even if just a little." Through the Tampa Police Headquarters windows, the sun could be seen setting over St. Petersburg. It seemed to signal both the end of one family's story and the beginning of a new one. In the spring of 2026, 2-year-old Matthew Thompson runs around the garden in the quiet residential area of Davis Islands. Nancy watches over him tenderly from a rocking chair on the veranda. "Matthew, it's snack time." At Nancy's call, Matthew responds with a bright smile. His eyes shine with unprecedented brilliance. The events of 2 years ago certainly left deep scars. However, mother and son have now begun walking a new path in life. At First Presbyterian Church of Tampa, Nancy has taken on a central role in the parenting support group that meets after Sunday services. Her experience serves as inspiration for women in similar situations. God never gives us trials we cannot overcome. Nancy's words in the support group carry deep conviction. People from all around Tampa come to hear her story. Her professional life is also fulfilling. Her analytical skills at the insurance company have become even sharper, and her proposals for family-related insurance products, drawing from her experience, are highly valued. Your proposals show a real understanding of the risks modern families face. These words from her supervisor gave Nancy genuine confidence. Elizabeth comes to see Matthew every weekend. Watching her grandson grow has become her greatest joy. Mom, look. Matthew learned another new word. The bond between mother and daughter has grown even stronger since that incident. Dr. Sullivan still regularly checks on Nancy and her son. Her reputation at Tampa General Hospital has grown even more as a doctor who stood firm for justice. The hospital's security system has been significantly enhanced, and their medical record protection system has become one of the best in the nation. That decision back then was the right one. She remains convinced of this. Meanwhile, Robert's end was pitiful. He received a 2-year prison sentence for attempted medical record falsification, intimidation, and other charges, serving his time in a Tampa, Florida prison. His real estate development license was revoked, and he was immediately fired from his company. Ironically, his mistress Jennifer disappeared right after the incident. Rumors later circulated that she had started a new life at a startup in Miami. I failed to see that man's true nature, Jennifer said in a local newspaper interview. But I'm glad I made the right choice in the end. I couldn't be part of ruining Nancy and Matthew's lives. Her testimony played a crucial role in the trial. In prison, Robert showed no signs of rehabilitation. No one came to visit him, and he spent his time in solitary confinement. Even his former colleagues began denying any association with him. I want nothing to do with someone who would commit such a despicable act. His reputation in Tampa's real estate industry was destroyed, making any comeback virtually impossible. Detective Laura has begun using this case as the dark side of modern families in her lectures at the police academy. I want to teach young police officers about the foolishness of betraying family for money and desire. Her lectures have left a strong impression on many aspiring police officers. The city of Tampa learned much from that incident. The importance of family bonds, medical ethics, and justice became deeply ingrained in the hearts of the city's people. The church community continues to warmly support Nancy and Matthew. Every Sunday after service, smiles abound as people gather around Matthew. This child is God's greatest gift, Nancy says. Her words carry deep love and gratitude. The shocking events of 2 years ago were certainly a great trial. However, overcoming them has made Nancy an even stronger and more gentle mother. Matthew grows up healthy, surrounded by his mother's love. He doesn't yet know about the events that occurred at the beginning of his life. But his innocent smile continues to heal the hearts of the adults around him. Justice always prevails. Elizabeth's words carry convincing weight. Like the sunlight shining down on Tampa, a bright future awaits this mother and son. The spring breeze gently sways the street trees in Davis Islands. In the dappled sunlight, Matthew runs around innocently. Nancy watches him, quietly savoring her happiness. Their new life had already taken its first steady steps forward. My name is Mary Anderson. I'm a 35-year-old pharmacist living in an upscale suburban neighborhood outside Boston. I work for a major pharmaceutical company with an annual salary of $80,000. While we're not exactly wealthy, I lead a fulfilling life. My husband James earns $400,000 annually as a senior manager at an investment bank. Though busy with work, he's a wonderful husband who always tries to make time for his family. Then there's our treasure, our son Ryan. He's 7 years old and in second grade at public school. Despite having an egg allergy, he's always cheerful and well-behaved, beloved by everyone around him. On the surface, our daily life appears harmonious. However, the reality is somewhat different, especially regarding my complicated relationship with my mother-in-law, Martha. Martha is a former teacher who lost her husband 2 years ago. She's rather pretentious and image-conscious, and currently planning to move into an upscale retirement home. My sister-in-law Catherine divorced 3 years ago and now lives with Martha. Catherine works part-time in administration and is in a somewhat unstable financial situation. Her daughter Samantha is 8 years old. Though in the same grade as Ryan, she attends private school and participates in numerous extracurricular activities, basking in her grandmother's absolute devotion. We belong to the same community, see each other at church, and spend holidays together. However, each time, I notice the different treatment of the grandchildren. There's an invisible wall I feel, especially in my mother-in-law's attitude. In the chilly late autumn of suburban Boston, with Thanksgiving just a week away, our family story reaches a turning point. The superficial peace in this upper-middle-class neighborhood is about to be greatly disturbed. During our weekly Sunday church gatherings, seasonal events, and family celebrations, I always felt my mother-in-law's judgmental gaze. The way she looked down on my profession as a pharmacist, as if it were a fallback for someone who couldn't become a doctor. Her repeated comments about how my wedding was modest for our family standards. And most painfully, her various remarks describing Ryan as the troublesome child because of his allergies. But we're family. My husband consoles me, saying, that's just Mom's way of showing love. Indeed, she raised him as an only son with great care, molding him into a successful professional. I can understand those feelings. Lately, though, her attitude has become more blatant. The difference in how she treats the grandchildren has become unbearable to watch. At church gatherings, she lauds only Samantha in front of everyone. In family photos, she positions Ryan at the edge. On social media, she only posts pictures with Samantha. In our 8 years of marriage, my relationship with my mother-in-law was never particularly good. Still, recent events have far exceeded my imagination. Looking back, I sense something off about her attitude since our wedding preparations. Mary, you wanted to become a doctor, didn't you? But had to settle for being a pharmacist. During the wedding reception planning, she casually but deliberately threw such hurtful words at me. In our family, we usually have more lavish weddings. But if that's what you want. I still vividly remember her heavy sigh as she said those words. At church gatherings, I was always forced into an awkward position. My mother-in-law would enthusiastically introduce Catherine and Samantha to her friends. But Ryan and I might as well have been invisible. Sometimes, she'd deliberately change her tone and dismissively introduce us as, "Oh yes, this is my second son's wife and their child." The Christmas party incident was particularly painful. Last year, when the Anderson family photos were to be displayed in the church hall, the picture mother-in-law chose prominently featured Catherine and Samantha's smiling faces. As for us, we were barely visible in a corner. Oh my, wasn't there a better photo? Ryan looks so gloomy in this one. I'll never forget how Ryan's shoulders trembled at his grandmother's words. The disparity in birthday presents also became more obvious over time. Last month, Samantha received the latest tablet for her birthday. Meanwhile, Ryan got a set of used picture books. The difference was clear to everyone. Social media was the same story. Martha's Facebook overflowed with photos of Samantha, piano recitals, horseback riding lessons, swimming competitions. But not a single photo from Ryan's school performances ever made it to her feed. Then James had to leave for a business trip, an important meeting in Chicago. He wouldn't be back until Sunday night. "Will you try to get along with Mom?" he asked the night before his departure, holding my hand. His eyes mixed with apology and something like resignation. The next day, I received an unexpected call from Martha. "Would you come for dinner tomorrow? I have something important to discuss." Her voice lacked its usual arrogance. Instead, there was something urgent about it. When I asked, "Can I bring Ryan?" she replied, "Yes, of course." Those words gave me a glimmer of hope. Maybe. My heart stirred at the expectation in Ryan's eyes. The next day, we prepared with utmost care. We bought Martha's favorite apple pie from Whole Foods. Ryan wore his navy blazer with an ivory shirt. My heart ached watching him repeatedly adjust his collar in the car, asking, "Do you think Grandma will be happy?" We arrived at Martha's house at exactly 6 p.m. Opening the door, we were greeted by the aroma of a butterball turkey. The savory smell of stovetop dressing and the sweet-tart scent of ocean spray cranberry sauce, a traditional Thanksgiving feast, had been prepared. Led into the living room, we noticed something off right away. The elegantly set dining table. However, only 5 places were set. There was no place for Ryan. "Oh, I forgot." Martha's voice carried something intentional about it. "Ryan, you'll eat on the sofa in the living room." The room's atmosphere froze at those words. Samantha wore a confused expression. Then came the crushing statement. "Only my daughter's child is my real grandchild, so your son doesn't need a seat." It was as if time stood still. Tears glistened in Ryan's eyes as his small body trembled. Catherine turned away while Samantha couldn't hide her shock. At that moment, something snapped inside me definitively. "Ryan, we're leaving." I stood up, taking my son's small hand. The apple pie we'd brought remained untouched on the table. Even after getting into the car, we remained silent for a while. Looking in the rearview mirror, I saw tears I couldn't hold back welling in my eyes. On the drive home, Ryan didn't say a word. I just felt his grip on my arm gradually tightening. When we got home, the clock showed 7:15 p.m. The garage door's closing sound seemed unusually loud. The silence after cutting the engine only highlighted our heartache. "Mom." Ryan's voice trembled. His small body, curled up in the passenger seat, looked ready to crumble. It's okay, Ryan. Let's stay together tonight. As we entered through the front door, Ryan burst into tears. His cries tore at my heart. Is it my fault? Did I do something to make Grandma hate me? I immediately hugged Ryan tightly as he spoke between sobs. No, you've done nothing wrong. Absolutely nothing. Walking to the living room sofa, I struggled to maintain my composure. But with each tremor of my son's small body, my anger grew. Ryan, wait here a moment. I headed to the kitchen and started making hot cocoa. I took marshmallows from the cupboard and poured the drink into his favorite blue mug. All the while, I could hear faint sobbing from the living room. I fetched the soft star-patterned blanket James had bought for Christmas and gently draped it over our son's shoulders. Here's your hot cocoa. Extra marshmallows. Ryan nodded slightly, timidly reaching for the mug. His gesture made my heart clench again. Ryan, is it okay if we tell Dad about what happened today? After thinking for a moment, Ryan gave a small nod. Yes, but what if Dad gets angry? Dad will definitely be on your side, Ryan. Because we're family. As I said those words, I took out my cell phone. James answered immediately when I called. Mary? What's wrong? At this hour? Worry immediately colored my husband's voice from his Chicago hotel room. James, today, at your mother's house. I explained the events one by one, trying to stay as calm as possible. The seating arrangement, how Ryan was treated, and Martha's words. As I explained, I could hear my husband's breathing becoming heavier on the other end. I can't believe this. His voice mixed with anger and sadness. I'm coming home right away. I'll book a flight now. But your important meeting tomorrow? Family comes first. I'll contact my boss right away. I could hear him typing on his computer through the phone. Mary, Mother's behavior is absolutely unacceptable. I'll definitely have a proper talk with her. But for now, please take care of Ryan. Yes, I understand. Can I talk to Ryan? When I handed the phone to Ryan, he took it with an anxious expression. Ryan, listen. Dad is so proud of you. You're our precious son. I'll definitely be home tomorrow, okay? At his father's words, tears welled up in Ryan's eyes again. But these seemed like a different kind of tears. After the call, I took Ryan up to the second-floor bedroom. Tonight, we extended toothbrushing time a bit. I helped him button his pajamas more carefully than usual. Would you like to sleep in Mom's room tonight? Ryan nodded silently. Lying beside my son in bed, I gently stroked his hair. Soon, exhausted, Ryan's breathing settled into the rhythm of sleep. In the night's quietness, I reflected on the day's events. Looking at my sleeping son's face, I contemplated our next steps. The relationship with Martha, the nature of family, and above all, protecting my precious son's heart. Just after midnight, another message arrived from James. Got a ticket on the earliest flight tomorrow. I'll be home by morning. We'll definitely talk with Mother. As I replied, I renewed my determination. This wasn't just a family quarrel. It was about our son's heart and our family bonds. Lying in bed, I recalled my husband's words. We'll definitely work this out. Supported by those words, I gradually drifted off to sleep. At 7 in the morning, the doorbell rang. Ryan was still asleep. I hurriedly went downstairs and opened the door. There stood Martha. But this wasn't the Martha I knew, with her perfect makeup and hair. Her bare face showed deep fatigue, her hair was disheveled, and her hands trembled slightly. "Mary, I need to talk." Her voice held none of yesterday's arrogance. "Please, come in." As I led her to the living room, I battled complex emotions. Anger, distrust, and something like sadness. "Would you like some coffee?" "Thank you." Martha's voice was thin and shaky. Only the coffee maker's sound broke the heavy atmosphere. When I returned to the living room with 2 mugs on a tray, Martha was staring blankly out the window. Her profile showed deep exhaustion. As I offered the coffee, Martha carefully took the mug with both hands. Her hands were still shaking. "I'm sorry." The first words were a formal apology. I was wrong. Those words had a certain hesitation. It seemed there was something else she couldn't yet say. I silently waited for her next words. The clock's second hand seemed unusually loud. Suddenly, Martha broke down crying. "I can't take it anymore." With those words, Martha's confession began. "I'm about to lose everything." In a trembling voice, Martha started speaking. Since losing her husband 2 years ago, financial problems had gradually become more serious. Medical bills had depleted their savings, and credit card payments were falling behind. "I can't afford the retirement home entry fee, but I couldn't tell anyone." Benchmark Senior Living, the luxury retirement home. $300,000 entry fee, $5,000 monthly. This was the retirement home Martha had dreamed of. After Catherine's divorce, I had to support them financially. Samantha's private school tuition too. I felt mixed emotions watching Martha speak through tears. "But why yesterday?" At my question, Martha sighed deeply. The retirement home contract deadline was approaching. I panicked. Out of pride and desperation, I acted unreasonably, especially toward Ryan. Her voice broke off there, and she began crying more intensely. "What horrible things I've done to Ryan. It's unforgivable." Just then, we heard small footsteps coming down the stairs. "Grandma." Ryan's voice froze the room's atmosphere. Martha slowly raised her face. Tears were still visible on her makeup-free face. "Ryan. I'm so sorry for what I said yesterday." Martha rose on shaking legs and knelt before Ryan. "I'm truly, truly sorry. Grandma was wrong." Ryan hesitantly approached Martha. "Can you forgive me?" At that moment, We heard the front door open. "Mary!" "Ryan!" It was James's voice. He must have caught an earlier flight than planned. James rushed into the living room and was speechless at the scene before him, his mother kneeling on the floor, his wife in tears, and his son with an anxious expression. "Mom, what's happening?" A long conversation followed. Martha's financial situation, the reasons for her past behavior, and most importantly, the family's future. James listened quietly but firmly. "Why didn't you come to us sooner?" "I was ashamed, and I didn't want to burden you. We're family. We could have figured something out together." At those words, Martha began crying again. But these tears seemed different. "Let's discuss the future as a family," I added, and James nodded. "Yes. But first." Martha turned to Ryan again. "Ryan, would you like to have breakfast with Grandma? I could make your favorite pancakes." After a slight hesitation, Ryan gave a small nod. 6 months have passed since then. In the living room flooded with spring sunlight, I'm looking through a photo album. A recent family photo shows Martha with a much softer expression. Many things have changed since that day. First, Martha began regular counseling. "It's been a good opportunity to reassess my values," she now says with a gentle smile. She abandoned the luxury retirement home plan, choosing instead a modest but comfortable lifestyle. Financially, James and Catherine discussed and created a new life plan. They rented out part of Martha's house, securing a stable income source. Though modest, they're now living steadily. "I never needed to keep up appearances," Martha said recently while having tea on the porch. Those words carried deep insight. The biggest change has been in her relationship with her grandchildren. "We now have monthly family dinners. Everyone has a place at the table, and Martha shows equal love to both grandchildren." "Ryan, that drawing is wonderful." "Samantha, you've practiced piano so hard." Her voice praising both grandchildren shows no trace of the former discrimination. Martha has also started volunteering with local parenting support groups. Using her experience, she hosts discussions about grandparent-grandchild relationships. Her activities are highly regarded in the community. "I've found new meaning in life's final chapter." She participates in church activities differently now too. Not for appearance or formality, but with genuine faith and service. Her relationship with Catherine has also changed. Free from excessive expectations and financial dependence, they've built a healthier mother-daughter relationship. Above all, our family bonds have deepened. "Mary, I'm so glad to have you," Martha told me recently. Those words were genuine. "Tonight, we're busy preparing for Christmas dinner." This year, Martha herself suggested a modest but heartfelt homemade dinner. "Grandma, is this okay?" In the kitchen, Ryan and Samantha are making cookies with Martha. Watching the three of them laugh together with flour-dusted faces brings me deep relief. The table is softly lit with places for everyone. At each seat is a handmade name card, each written with care in Martha's neat handwriting, filled with love. "This is what real family means," Martha said softly. Outside, light snow had begun to fall. Inside, the warm air was filled with the aroma of turkey and cookies. The expensive gifts and lavish meals of the past have faded away. But what we've gained instead is far more valuable. Gratitude, compassion, and above all, genuine family bonds. Listening to the laughter coming from the kitchen, I smiled quietly to myself. Our family's story is about to begin a new chapter. One that will surely be filled with a warmer, different kind of light. Mom, look. Ryan proudly showed me his tree-shaped cookie. Though slightly misshapen, that made it all the more endearing. It's wonderful, Ryan. Everyone can smile now, my mother-in-law, the grandchildren, my husband, and me. This, I feel from the bottom of my heart, is what being a true family really means. Outside, the snow continued to fall quietly, as if blessing this peaceful moment. At 6 a.m. in an affluent suburban neighborhood of Boston, Melissa Wilson was preparing milk for her 3-month-old son Luke in her pristine white house. The morning sun gently illuminated her brand-new kitchen counter. "Good morning, Angel." When she planted a soft kiss on Luke's cheek as he awakened in his crib, the baby responded with a bright smile. His tiny hand reached out, gently grasping her hair. This happiness, unimaginable before giving birth, had become her daily reality. It had been a week since she returned to work from maternity leave. Though balancing work and childcare was more challenging than expected, his innocent smile saved her every day. Her husband Jacob was an investment banker working in the financial district. On the surface, they appeared to be living an ideal married life. "Hey Luke, has Daddy been taking good care of us lately?" The baby only answered with sparkling eyes to his mother's question. The doorbell rang. Kate, the babysitter, had arrived. She was mild-mannered and a reliable presence with extensive childcare experience. After raising 3 children of her own, she had built a reputation as a trustworthy babysitter through word of mouth. "I fed him at 6:30 this morning. The next feeding should be around 10. Also, he's been seeming a bit itchy lately." "Don't worry, Melissa. Leave him to me. You focus on work. I'll take good care of Luke." Encouraged by Kate's words, Melissa began preparing for her hospital shift. While changing into her white coat in front of the mirror, she noticed missed calls from her mother-in-law Patricia from late last night, 3 calls that she'd missed as she was already asleep. I should call her back later. During morning outpatient hours at Boston General Hospital's pediatric department, Melissa found herself smiling naturally while examining a 3-year-old boy. His fever has gone down. But let's keep watching him at home for a bit longer. If you're worried about anything, please don't hesitate to contact me. Her experience as a mother had made her a more empathetic doctor. She could now understand the anxieties and concerns of patients' mothers more deeply than before. "How are you managing with both childcare and work?" Her colleague Sarah approached her in the examination room. She was a veteran doctor with over 20 years of experience and a good confidant for Melissa. "Well, it's fulfilling in a way. My husband, Melissa's voice trailed off. Recently, something seemed off about her husband Jacob. He said he was coming home late due to a new project, but there was an unsettling atmosphere about him. He had become inseparable from his cell phone, and his sudden outings on weekends had increased. Is something wrong? No, it's probably nothing. He's just been busy lately. Looking at the photos Kate had sent during her lunch break, Melissa thought about her mother-in-law. Patricia used to visit once a week, but her visits had become less frequent over the past month. When they talked on the phone, she seemed to be hiding something. "I'm not feeling well," or "I'm busy now, maybe next time." She appeared to be avoiding visits with such vague excuses. As a former high school teacher, Patricia was meticulous and well-organized. This unnatural behavior was clearly unlike her usual self. Melissa let out a deep sigh as she headed to her afternoon examinations. This should have been the happiest time in her life. Yet she couldn't shake off her anxiety. On Friday afternoon in the pediatric department of Boston General Hospital, Melissa was working on electronic medical records. Having finally finished a string of morning examinations, she was now caught up in documentation. Outside the window, she could hear the energetic voices of children enjoying the spring weather. "Kate? How's Luke doing?" Melissa called the babysitter during her break. "No need to worry. He woke up from his nap and drank his milk well. He's contentedly sitting on my lap now." The photo she received showed Luke smiling happily. Just as her heart was warming at his adorable expression, her phone rang again. Seeing the name displayed on the screen, Melissa hesitated slightly. It was her mother-in-law. Though her recent unnatural behavior had been concerning, calls during work hours were unusual. After a moment's hesitation, Melissa answered the phone. "Hello, is something wrong?" "Melissa, you." It wasn't her usual composed tone. Instead, it was almost accusatory, mixed with anxiety and irritation. "When are you going to pick up the baby?" "I've been taking care of him for a month now." Melissa thought she must have misheard the sudden statement. "What do you mean?" "Jacob's child. Come get him soon. I can't keep taking care of him forever." Her mother-in-law's voice grew increasingly agitated. Various thoughts swirled in Melissa's mind. She couldn't understand what her mother-in-law was talking about. "Patricia, what do you mean?" "Luke is with Kate right now." She checked her phone screen again, seeing the smiling photo of her son sent just minutes ago. "Who are you talking about?" There was a moment of silence on the other end. "Why are you pretending not to know?" Her mother-in-law's voice was trembling. "Jacob's child. A newborn baby boy. He's your child, isn't he?" A chill ran through Melissa's entire body. She sensed something terrible was happening. At that moment, she spoke as calmly as possible, but with a clear tone. "My child is sleeping at home right now. I just received photos from Kate. What exactly is going on?" "But..." Her mother-in-law's voice cracked. "Jacob said..." She stopped mid-sentence. "Indeed," Melissa could hear a baby crying in the background. Clearly the thin cry of a newborn. Melissa's spine froze. "Patricia, whose baby is there?" "He is." As her confused mother-in-law spoke, another baby's cry overlapped. That cry was unmistakably that of a newborn. "I'm calling the police." Melissa's voice was surprisingly calm, even to herself. Her experience handling emergencies as a doctor was supporting her through this surreal situation. Melissa hung up without waiting for her mother-in-law's response. Her hands were shaking. She leaned back in her examination room chair and took a deep breath. Various possibilities raced through her mind. Her husband's recent behavior changes. Her mother-in-law's unnatural attitude. And now, the baby crying at her mother-in-law's house. There must be a connection between everything. However, the truth might be beyond imagination. Dr. Wilson, the next patient. Brought back to reality by the nurse's voice, Melissa stood up. "I'm sorry, but a family emergency has come up. Could you please reschedule the remaining appointments?" As she took off her white coat, Melissa had decided her next actions. First, report to the police, then head to her mother-in-law's house. And contact her husband Jacob. Considering the gravity of the situation, there was no time to waste. "Kate, I'm sorry. Something urgent has come up." While grabbing her car keys, Melissa called the babysitter. "Don't worry about Luke." "But what's wrong?" "Your voice is shaking." "I don't have time to explain. Just..." Melissa chose her words carefully. "Even if Jacob comes home today, don't let him in under any circumstances. Don't open the door to anyone until I return. Please, Kate. Protect my precious son." After hanging up, Melissa headed to the hospital parking lot. Despite the spring weather, her heart felt as cold as ice. What truth awaited her at her mother-in-law's house? And how would that truth change her life? Her steps toward the parking lot were heavy but unwavering. As a mother, as a doctor, and as a woman, she had resolved to face the truth. At the Boston police station, Melissa was pleading the urgency of the situation. "There may be a newborn being kept at my mother-in-law's house. We don't know if there's a birth certificate." Lieutenant Johnson from the Child Abuse Investigation Unit listened intently to Melissa's plea with a serious expression. "An hour ago when I spoke with her on the phone, I clearly heard a newborn crying. My mother-in-law said it was my husband's child, but that's absolutely impossible. Mrs. Wilson, please calm down. Let's go through this step by step." Melissa took a deep breath and began explaining the circumstances: her husband's unusual behavior, her mother-in-law's change in attitude, and the shocking phone conversation. As she spoke, her voice began to tremble. "I have a 3-month-old son. He's at home with the babysitter right now. But at my mother-in-law's house." Lieutenant Johnson stood up and gave instructions to his colleagues. "Contact Child Protective Services. And verify the address for Patricia Wilson's residence. 127 Maplewood Avenue in the Brookline District." Melissa answered immediately. It was a well-known upscale residential area. Please let me come along. I'm a pediatrician. If medical care is needed, I can respond immediately. Seeing Melissa's determined expression, the lieutenant gave a brief nod. 2 patrol cars and a Child Protective Services vehicle arrived at Patricia Wilson's house. Melissa parked her car a short distance away. Her hands were shaking. Her mother-in-law was far from her usual composed self. This is a search warrant. We need to check inside for the baby's safety. Wait. This is a misunderstanding. I haven't. Just then, a baby's cry was heard from inside the house. The officers quickly entered, with Melissa following behind. The moment she entered the living room, her eyes fell on a white crib. There lay a clearly newborn baby boy. A Child Protective Services social worker immediately began checking the baby's condition. Driven by her medical instincts, Melissa rushed to the baby. He appears to be about 2 weeks old. Weight is within normal range. However, while observing the baby, Melissa noticed something concerning. There's mild jaundice. He might need immediate testing. Meanwhile, the officers were searching the house. Baby supplies, diapers, formula, everything looked new. Then, the lieutenant picked up a document. A birth certificate. Dated 2 weeks ago. In the mother's name column was an unfamiliar name. Ashley Morgan. Upon hearing that name, her mother-in-law collapsed into a chair. Jacob asked me to. Through tears, she struggled to form words. My son told me it's Melissa's child, but she's staying at her parents' for the birth, and I believed him. In Melissa's mind, various pieces started connecting. Her husband's unusual behavior, late-night outings, obsessive phone checking. Child Protective Services staff were proceeding with emergency custody procedures. The baby will be taken to a temporary shelter. No. Melissa interrupted. I'll oversee his care as a pediatrician. I'm concerned about his jaundice. This child's health comes first. Faced with Melissa's resolute attitude, the Child Protective Services staff had to agree. Very well. However, it will be under constant supervision. An ambulance arrived, and Melissa would accompany the baby to the hospital. Before getting into the ambulance, she glanced at her mother-in-law, who remained collapsed in the chair. At Boston General Hospital's neonatal unit, the baby's test results were coming in. Fortunately, there were no serious health issues. Melissa breathed a sigh of relief. The lieutenant entered the hospital room. Any contact with your husband? His cell phone appears to be turned off. His office says he's absent. Just then, Melissa's smartphone vibrated. The screen showed a message from Ashley Morgan. I'll tell you everything. But please, think about this child. Melissa sighed deeply as she typed her reply. I understand. Please tell your story to the police with me present. The truth that was about to be revealed might dramatically change her life. However, there was now something unshakable within Melissa. It was her determination to protect the innocent life before her, both as a doctor and as a mother. While watching the baby sleeping peacefully in the incubator, she began considering her next steps. That night, in the neonatal intensive care unit of Boston General Hospital, Melissa was checking the baby's charts with a tired expression. The DNA test results had just come in. Indeed, he is Jacob Wilson's child. The lieutenant's voice echoed in the quiet hospital room. The mother's column listed Ashley Morgan. Everything was becoming clear. Ashley Morgan is at the station. She says she's ready to tell her story. Melissa sighed deeply and slowly stood up. After glancing at the baby sleeping in the incubator, she followed the lieutenant. Walking through the hospital corridor, various thoughts swirled in her mind. Anger toward her husband, the pain of betrayal, and complex feelings about the baby before her. Melissa. Suddenly, a familiar voice rang out from behind. Turning around, there stood Jacob, looking exhausted. "Let me explain." "Be quiet." Melissa's cold voice cut off her husband's words. "The DNA test results are in. That child is yours and Ashley Morgan's." The color drained from Jacob's face. "I'll tell you everything." The lieutenant guided them to a small conference room. Ashley was already waiting there, sitting in a chair with a tired expression. "I'll tell you everything." Ashley began speaking. "Jacob and I have been involved for a year. At La Bella Vita, where he was a regular." The story unfolded matter-of-factly. The affair, unexpected pregnancy, and birth. Jacob tried to cover everything up. He planned to switch the babies while Melissa was on maternity leave. He said, "My wife is staying with her parents for the birth. During that time, I want to leave our child with my mother." Ashley's voice trembled. "At first I was suspicious, but with a large sum of hush money and the promise that Melissa would raise him." "Wait." Melissa interrupted. "I would raise him. You were trying to switch my baby." Jacob looked up. "You would, surely, be a wonderful mother. To both children. You tried to use my child to cover up your affair." Her voice shook with anger, yet it was ice cold. Jacob desperately tried to explain, making her believe it was Melissa's child. "Shut up." For the first time, Melissa exploded with emotion. "You were introduced to me by the doctor who saved my life. You swore you loved me. And you were supposed to be the father of our child." Tears streamed down her cheeks. "Yet you planned something so despicable." Just then, Patricia entered the small conference room. She had just finished giving her statement to the police. "Melissa, I truly..." Melissa had regained her composure. "I understand you were deceived. But why didn't you notice sooner?" Patricia collapsed into a chair. "I started feeling something was wrong recently. But I wanted to believe my son." "I see." Melissa took a photo from her bag. It was the photo of her son sent by Kate this morning. "This is my precious son, Luke. He's grown wonderfully to 3 months old." Looking at the photo, Melissa strengthened her resolve. Jacob, this is the end. I'll file for divorce tomorrow. Child support and compensation will be handled through my lawyer. Wait. Think about this calmly. I am calm. Melissa stood up. Ashley. Surprised at being suddenly addressed, Ashley looked up. Your child needs treatment for jaundice. I will do my best as his primary physician. However, that is only fulfilling my duty as a doctor. Please don't involve yourself in our lives any further. The lieutenant cleared his throat. Now, we'll proceed with the arrest. Jacob Wilson, you're under arrest for creating and submitting false birth certificates. The sound of handcuffs echoed. Patricia let out a cry. After witnessing everything, Melissa headed back to the neonatal unit. A new life would begin tomorrow. Though there were anxieties about balancing childcare and work alone, her heart was already made up. Before opening the door to the neonatal unit, Melissa took out her cell phone. Kate. Thank you. Is Luke asleep? I see, that's good. I'm heading home now. Let's start preparing for our new life tomorrow. In a quiet residential area of suburban Boston, Melissa was preparing breakfast for her 9-month-old son Luke in their newly purchased townhouse. Here you go, sweetheart. Today we have pumpkin puree. Luke sat in his high chair, watching his mother with expectant eyes. Melissa couldn't help but smile as his tiny hands skillfully gripped the spoon, trying to feed himself. 6 months had passed since the divorce. Life as a single mother wasn't easy, but daily small discoveries and joys were healing her heart. Dr. Wilson, here are the charts for this afternoon's appointments. At the hospital, she had been promoted to Deputy Chief of Pediatrics. Though balancing childcare and work was challenging, she was living a fulfilling life thanks to the support of understanding colleagues. Thank you. Oh, that reminds me. Melissa asked the receptionist nurse. Did we schedule Ashley's son's vaccination appointment? Yes, it's next Tuesday. Since the incident, she had continued as the primary physician for Ashley Morgan's son. Though hesitant at first, she chose to face this innocent life as a doctor. Ashley, too, was desperately raising her son as a single mother. The restaurant La Bella Vita surprisingly remained in business. In fact, the incident had made it a topic in local media, turning it into a popular spot where reservations were hard to get. Meanwhile, Jacob received a suspended sentence and resigned from the investment bank. He had apparently moved to the West Coast in search of new work. Melissa retained full custody, and child support payments were being made without delay. Patricia had changed significantly after this incident. Though pained by her son's betrayal, she repeatedly apologized to Melissa and Luke, and now devoted herself to volunteer work at local childcare facilities. Grandma wants to see him. Melissa's mother was looking forward to spending time with Luke on the weekend. Their family bonds had grown even stronger than before. Dr. Wilson, we have an emergency patient. Just then, a call came in from Pediatric Emergency. I understand, I'll be right there. As she changed into her white coat, Melissa looked out the window. The seasons had changed from spring to summer and now to fall, with the street trees beginning to show their autumn colors. Life sometimes presents unexpected challenges. But overcoming these trials makes us stronger and more compassionate. Dr. Wilson, you have a lovely visitor. The receptionist called out. There stood Michael Thomas, her friend since college and a child psychologist. She could feel her heart gradually opening up to his kind smile, as he had been increasingly attentive to her lately. When people lose something, new encounters await them. Melissa now felt a definite sense of progress. As a mother, as a doctor, and as a woman, a new chapter in her life was quietly but surely beginning to unfold.